Thank you so much, Michiel.
You're welcome.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me already challenge the word nature to begin with, because I'm a biologist, but I'm not fond of the word nature, because it implies that it is something outside of us, while we actually are nature. So I prefer to talk about natural intelligence, or even better, the intelligence of living systems. And that is actually the topic that I will be speaking about here today. Now, I've designed this presentation to be a little bit different than a standard keynote presentation. I hope you indulge me. And that's why I want to start with a question to you. Who of you learned in school that of all species on Earth, humans are the most intelligent? Please raise your hand. Okay. I see almost all hands in the air. That's not a surprise. I learned that too. Now, who of you actually tested whether this assumption is true? Did anyone test this? Please raise your hand. No one? Well, in the next video clip that I'm sharing, you can see a science experiment where they actually put this to the test. Here it is.
Scientists at Japan's Primate Research Institute, the PRI, where Ayumu is based, have devised intelligence tests for chimps. One test is for what's called working memory, the brain's ability to temporarily store and use information. The numbers 1 to 9 are randomly scattered across a touchscreen. The chimp looks at them for as long as is needed to memorize the layout. Then, as soon as 1 is touched, the other numbers are hidden and must now be remembered. We volunteered Chris, the director of this program, to demonstrate this test. He's a college graduate and a crossword addict, but how good is his working memory? When Chris reckons he has memorized the layout, he touches 1. When the others are hidden, he must try to recall 2 to 9 in ascending order.
It takes me ages to remember where they're all placed, and then I think I've got it. It's really very, very difficult.
In 30 attempts, Chris only once reached 9 without making a mistake.
As soon as they're blanked over, it's like my mind's been blanked over as well.
When Ayumu sat the same test, he correctly remembered the numbers almost 90% of the time.
Ayumu gets it right almost every time, and I've got it right once.
Chris fears he's let his species down. But even when the PRI played Ayumu against their best human students who were given regular practice sessions, Ayumu still beat all humans. Other chimps at the PRI have also sat the exams. Among these apes, computer skills are as normal as the ability to swing from the trees. Though none of his rivals beat Ayumu, a few came close. And average chimp results turned out to be higher than amongst humans. So, does that efficient working memory mean chimps are cleverer than humans?
So this is just one example that shows us that as a species, we may be a bit more humble in terms of our thinking about intelligence. And it illustrates a very good point, that we are not such good engineers, designers, and managers as we think we are. You just have to look at the news to see that we are destroying the life support systems on which our life depends. The situation at present is so dire that scientists are now talking about Earth system collapse. And this is not something in the long future. There are models that predict this to happen this decade. So how did we get here? Well, the root of the problem is that we have designed a logic of value creation that leads to degeneration, a process of decline and deterioration. It is a terminal system because it is out of sync with the way life works. To really understand this, I am inviting you to do a thought experiment with me. It is a bit unconventional, but I would like to ask you to close your eyes, as it works best that way. So, are you ready? We're going to image our body from the inside out. Start with one of your cells and visualize how this cell is nested in one of your tissues. Now visualize that tissue and how it is nested inside one of your organs. Now picture this organ, it can be your lungs or your brain, and how this is nested in your respiratory system or your nerve system. Now picture this system and how it is nested inside your body. Now, with your eyes closed, think, what is it that makes your body work? Can you discern the specific process that enables all these different orders and parts of your body to operate as one coherent whole? A whole that has a unique essence and spirit. Okay, you can open your eyes again. When I asked you, what makes your body work? Who thought of an economy? Please raise your hands. No one thought of an economy? Well, that's strange, because we now know from science that any living system can maintain its health only while there is a balanced economy of interests between the parts and the whole. I say balanced because there's no such thing as rich or poor cells or rich or poor organs. As long as your body is healthy, its economy and ecology are one. Now, what is the specific process that makes your body work? It's the fact that the smallest, or that actually every element adds value to the bigger thing that it is nested in. So value adding in nested systems is one of the basic foundations of nature. So the health and the vitality of your body is in the whole and not in the parts. So I did this experiment with you to show you that the essence of how life works on our planet is this process of value adding in nested living systems. The cell, the organ, the tissue, the organ system, it all adds value to the bigger system it is nested in, and in return, receive nourishment for its own. Now, why is this understanding important? Well, we now know from satellite images that Earth is a giant living system, just like your body. It's a living system that self-regulates and breathes, as you can see in this little movie clip. So I don't know about you, but to me it is clear that we need a new paradigm for innovation. And where can we look for inspiration? Well, we have been scanning the cosmos for intelligent extraterrestrial life. And we have been building artificial intelligence in the hopes that ET or AI will save us, which many great minds, including Stephen Hawking, think is very unlikely. And while AI is still in diapers, NI, or natural intelligence, is 3.8 billion years old. What this means is summarized in this image. If we would summarize the entire history of the Earth into one calendar year, then all of human history would take place in the last half hour of December the 31st. The Industrial Revolution would start 2 seconds before New Year's Eve. So as relative novices on Earth, our biggest challenge is to avoid joining the 99.9% of species that once lived on Earth, but that are now extinct. Or, to use Jonathan Porritt's words, maybe it is time to consider living on Earth as if we want to stay here, by learning to become self-renewing right where we are. Because even though most humans have forgotten this, we share the same intent as all the rest of living creatures on Earth. Life wants to live. Life wants to stay alive. This is what I call natural intelligence, or NI, because it represents life's logic behind 3.8 billion years of success on planet Earth. It is the art and science of surviving and thriving on a continuously changing planet with limited resources. Basically, natural intelligence is the intelligence of living systems. You see, living systems can do things that mechanical systems cannot do. Living systems can create themselves, and they can create what we call negentropy, which is the reverse of entropy. They can create a higher order of integration, integrity, and functioning. Negentropy allows living systems to become more and do more over time. They allow our planet to become richer, to become more complex, and to become more viable in the future. So how do living systems achieve that? Well, we now know from science that whales cool the climate, that mushrooms make rain, that foxes green the tundra, and termites green the desert. We also know from science that plankton create clouds when the sun burns too hot on the ocean, and that fungi mine rocks. In fact, they're the largest mining corporation on Earth, and they do not destroy nor pollute the environment. We know that wolves restore degraded ecosystems, that forests foster community, that mangroves protect coastlines against storms, and that beavers hold back wildfires. These stories illustrate that there is an intelligence behind the success of the natural world. 4, the life that prevails over millions of years of selection is the life that creates conditions conducive to life. Leave the planet better than you found her. That is the way that life works. From a big history perspective, this means that the most basic foundation, the ground rule of life on Earth, is that life generates conditions that are beneficial to future life. In other words, regeneration is nature's blueprint for innovation. It is about developing a higher order of wealth, health, and life-generating capability. So if we want to make it in the long term as a human species, we will have to shift our worldview, shift from humans on top to a worldview of interbeing, shifting from viewing the economy as a master to viewing the economy as a servant, and shifting from a mechanistic logic, or complementing our mechanistic logic with the logic of life. So it is about these processes of system renewal and revitalization that leave the planet healthier, wealthier, and more vibrant than before. Leaving the planet better than before is not optional. It's a prerequisite to survive and thrive in the long term. So how does this process of value-adding work on a planetary scale? Well, let me give you a few examples. Whales are mammals that need oxygen to breathe, so they invest in oxygen making. Termites and ants need biomass to live, so they invest in greenery making. Fungi need water to survive, so they invest in rain making. Trees need fertile soils to live and grow, so they invest in soil making. What's more, trees cannot run when the conditions turn bad, so trees also invest in climate making. Wolves need prey to survive, so they invest in life making. That is the logic of value adding for how life works on our unique planet. So what distinguishes the survival champions, the 0.1%, from the fossils, is this pattern that is as old as life itself. The species that survive and thrive over the long haul, despite millions of years of change, disruption, and major upheaval, are those that leave the world more vital, more viable, and more capable. They are world makers, not world breakers. So the premise that I'm sharing here today with you is that the only way for us to break out of the pattern of degeneration and destruction, the path that we are on right now, is to regenerate, not terminate, by becoming more humble and by inviting the living world to become our mentor, our model, and our measure. For instance, can we learn from natural patterns how to do energy right? For decades, engineers have been trying to control turbulence. But what if instead of trying to control turbulence, we harness its power instead? An interesting pattern in this regard is the spiral pattern. You can find it all over Earth, from the galaxy to hurricanes, to the horns of animals and the forms of plants and shells. Even our DNA is a spiral. And what can we learn from this spiral shape? Well, there's a company that's called PAC Scientific. It's based in the US. And they thought, what if we learn from the spiral how to do ventilation right? You see, ventilators haven't changed over the last 100 years. What they did was they reverse engineered a spiral form and made a ventilator out of it. They call it flare. Now, their ventilator performs as good as the conventional ventilators, but it uses 85% less energy than the conventional ones. In Belgium, there's this company called Turbulence, and they develop eco-friendly hydropower solutions, also inspired by this spiral form. These microturbines, they work in small streams, and they allow aquatic animals to pass through it unharmed. What if we can learn from corals how to do infrastructure right? You see, corals build rock-hard infrastructure that survived beating waves for millions of years. Now, scientists are studying the coral biomineralization process to see if we can actually mimic this process to create infrastructures with lasting durability and strength. What's more, corals use carbon as a building block. They sequester carbon from the air. A US-based company called Blue Planet mimicked this biomineralization process of the coral, and they created a cement that stores carbon instead of emitting it. Can we learn from extremophiles? Those are creatures that can withstand enormously harsh conditions. Can we learn from extremophiles how to do, for instance, storage right? This is a picture of a water bear or tardigrade, and they live in water. Yet they can survive for decades and decades outside of the water. There's a company called Nova Laboratories in the UK that actually learned from the tardigrades how we can store precious substances like vaccines without refrigeration. Again, an enormous reduction in energy consumption. But also in terms of material efficiency, we can learn a lot from nature. Have you ever wondered why a crooked tree does not fall over? Well, it is because the tree adds more wood to the places where the mechanical load or the mechanical stress is the highest. That is an algorithm. Birds, on the other hand, they do something different. They have to be lightweight, so their bird bones have to be lightweight in order for them to be able to fly. So they eliminate materials where they're not needed. Again, an algorithm. If we combine the bird and the tree algorithm into a 3D printer, then the company called Exploration Architecture 3D printed a table like this, which has the same strength as a conventional table, but uses 1,000 times less material than the conventional table. Can we learn from cacti how we can cool without air conditioning? You see, cactuses, they live in deserts where the heat during the day can be scorching hot. How can they survive there? Because their shape actually cools and ventilates them. You see, the shape is so that the cactus always has half of it in shade and the other half in the sun. Now, what does happen when you do that? Well, the air rises in the parts that are in the sun, and the air drops in the parts that are in the shade. And so this shade actually makes that the cacti can continuously ventilate itself so it does not get overheated. This is again a principle that we can apply to, for instance, our buildings, like they've done here in this example of Arizona University. Can we learn from nature how to do chemistry right? Nature does not make forever chemicals. She does not make ecotoxicity. All the chemistry in nature is biocompatible and biodegradable. Did you know, for instance, that spider silk is stronger than Kevlar, and Kevlar being the most strong material that we humans have devised, yet spider silk is stronger, and it's made at room temperature with just dead flies and water. There's a company called Spintex that actually learned how to make fibers the spider way. Their process is 1,000 times more energy efficient than the conventional production of plastic fibers. Or what if we could create bling from biomaterials, just like these beetles? These are just a few examples of how intelligent the natural world really is. So to conclude, we need to learn to regenerate, not terminate. In other words, it's time that we learn from these survival heroes how to do value exchange right. So let me thank you for your attention.